The knock came again, sharp and patient, cutting through the quiet like a held breath, finally released. She froze mid-step, heart pounding so hard it felt louder than the world around her. Somewhere deep inside, a voice she had buried for 7 years whispered a truth she was too afraid to believe. Someone was standing on the other side of HDO door, and they were not strangers. Wait without letting it bend her spine. Her name was Mara Ellison, and grief had shaped her into something quiet and strong. Like stone worn smooth by years of weather. She did not rush to the door. She placed her hand on the wall, steadying herself, breathing in the faint smell of old wood and soap. The knock came a third time, softer now, almost unsure 7 years earlier. She had been told her babies were born without breath. Mara had been a nurse then. A woman trained to watch monitors, to read signs others missed, to trust what her hands and eyes told her. She had worked night shifts, cared for strangers at their weakest, and believed that truth, even when painful, was kinder than lies. So when her mother-in-law stood in that hospital hallway, eyes dry, voice calm, and said the twins did not make it, Mara believed her. She remembered the way the floor felt cold through her shoes, the way the smell of clean sheets and sharp cleaner burned her nose. She remembered asking to see them, just once, and she remembered being told it was better not to, that some sights could break a person forever. Mara had already been broken. Her husband, Daniel, had been deployed overseas. The call reached him days later. He came home different, eyes hollow, shoulders stiff. Grief wrapped them both, thick and heavy. They buried 2 small white boxes without names. No photos, no footprints. Just silence and a promise that life would go on. It did, slowly, painfully. Daniel never forgave himself for not being there. Mara never forgave her body. And Daniel's mother, Ruth, stayed close, steady, helpful. Too helpful. She cooked, cleaned, prayed, and reminded Mara often that some things were God's will. Mara learned not to argue. She learned that peace sometimes meant swallowing questions. Years passed. Daniel did not return from his last deployment. An accident, they said. A moment too fast to stop. Mara became a widow with empty arms and memories that refused to fade. She moved to a small house at the edge of town, painted the walls warm colors, planted flowers that came back every spring no matter how hard the winter had been. She survived that morning. 7 years later, she had been folding laundry. Sunlight spilling across the floor. When the knock came, Mara opened the door slowly. 2 children stood there, a boy and a girl. Around 7 years old, their hair dark like Daniel's, their eyes the same gray as her own. They stood close together, fingers brushing as if afraid to let go. The girl held a piece of folded paper in her hand. The boy's shoes were too big, scuffed at the toes. They looked at her like they had been looking for her their whole lives. Her breath left her body without permission. The world tilted. The air felt thin. The girl spoke first. Her voice was small, but steady. "We were told this was our mom's house." Mara's knees nearly gave way. Her mind screamed reasons, lies, anything but the truth burning in front of her. She did not cry. Not yet. She had cried enough for a lifetime. Instead, she knelt slowly, eyes never leaving their faces, studying every line, every familiar detail. Her nurse's mind counted breaths, watched pupils, noticed the faint scar above the boy's eyebrow, the tiny birthmark on the girl's wrist. Her heart knew before her mind dared to follow. Inside her chest, something long buried began to wake. She invited them in, gave them water, sat across from them at the small kitchen table. Her hands shook as she folded them together. The children watched her with careful curiosity, as if sensing the weight of the moment. They told her about the woman they called Grandma Ruth, how she had raised them in a quiet house far from town, how she said their mother had died, how she said the world outside was dangerous, full of people who would take them away, how she taught them to be quiet, grateful, invisible. Mara listened, every word cutting deeper than the last. She did not interrupt. She did not raise her voice. Her silence was not weakness. It was control. Ruth had taken everything from her. Her babies. Her truth. Her choice. The children finished their story. The girl unfolded the paper and slid it across the table. It was a letter written in careful handwriting, signed by a social worker whose name Mara recognized. A routine school check. Questions asked. Answers that did not line up. A door opened just enough for the truth to slip through. Ruth had lied. For 7 years, Mara stood. She walked to the window and pressed her forehead against the glass. Outside, the flowers swayed gently in the breeze, unaware of the storm gathering inside her. Rage came, hot and sharp, but it did not take control. Beneath it was something stronger. Purpose. She turned back to the children and spoke words that would stay with them forever. You are safe here. No one will ever hide you again. The days that followed were heavy with truth. Authorities came quietly. Questions were asked. Ruth did not fight. Her power had always lived in silence and fear, and once exposed, it crumbled. She said she was protecting them. She said she knew best. But the world no longer listened. The town watched as the story spread, not with noise, but with stunned stillness. Neighbors who had smiled at Ruth now looked away. People who had walked past Mara for years without knowing her pain felt shame settle into their bones. Mara never shouted, never begged. She stood tall, children at her sides, hands resting gently on their shoulders. Her strength was steady, unbreakable. In a small courtroom weeks later, the truth was spoken out loud. The judge listened. The room held its breath. When the ruling came, it was quiet and final. Custody restored. Lies named. Justice delivered without cruelty as they left. People stood. Not because they were told to, because respect demanded it. Outside, the sun was warm. The boy squeezed Mara's hand. The girl leaned into her side. For the first time in 7 years, the weight in Mara's chest shifted. Not gone, never gone, but lighter. That night, she tucked them into beds she had once prepared for ghosts. She read them stories. She watched them sleep, counting breaths, memorizing the rise and fall of their chests. Tears came then, silent and cleansing. Some wounds never heal, but some truths bring life back where there was only loss. Mara understood now that silence could be power. That dignity could outlast cruelty. That love, once stolen, could still find its way home. And sometimes, the door you stop hoping will ever open again is the one that changes everything. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from. Tell us what truth means to you. And subscribe for more stories that honor quiet strength and unseen battles. ChatGPT can make mistakes. OpenAI